So this is another question from one of my students that we would have had in one of the webinars recently. And the question is, sometimes life happens, so would it not be safer to do your PhD right after your master's if you can? There may be a risk of getting too comfortable in your job. True, there could be a risk of getting comfortable in your PhD as well. So, there is that never-ending student syndrome as well. Look, there are many variables that one, should consider. Um, I did my PhD after being in business for 20 years. I did my master's straight after my bachelor's degree. And I was grateful I got my master's out the way because when I came back to doing my PhD, it meant I could go straight into it, and I didn't then have to do a master's before finishing my PhD. I think the big question here would be, financially. If you're in a financial position that can means you can spend another 3-4 years doing your PhD, and I presume they mean here full time, and that is a goal that you have set yourself to get that PhD level. The other trade-off is obviously, once you get back into the working world, then, and in South Africa, we used to have to go up to the army for 2 years, and people used to say, well, that was 2 years that you lost in terms of making progress in your job or in your career. So you'd have to then, be financially well enough off to be able to study 3-4 years for a PhD full time. And you'd have to also acknowledge that by the time you go into the working world, others would have started maybe a few years before you, but your PhD could mean that you come in at a higher level. Now, that's not always the case. We have spoken about that quite a bit in the webinars. For example, with Dr. Jeff, we spoke in some detail about how important that workplace experience is. PhDs are important for career progression, but in the majority of cases, it should always be combined with some decent workplace experience because the risk is that you could be considered overqualified and underexperienced. So, um, difficult to answer this one. Depends on the very specific circumstances. On balance, if I had to come down with an answer in this year of 2020, when I think it's put financial strain on everybody, my advice would be to get into the workplace, um, but to build in the discipline of getting to your PhD at some point and possibly doing it part time. I mean, there's no reason why you can't get into your job and get your career going and get that off the ground and do your PhD. And of course, come and do some of the courses that I offer where I teach you exactly how to do that. I teach you how to get organized. I teach you how to be disciplined. I teach you how to get a lot done during the day. So I think you could have the best of both worlds. I think if I had to come down on it, I would say, get into your career, get that going, but then also burn your boats, make a commitment to getting that PhD. I had somebody throughout my PhD. I had breakfast with him every 6 months. He was an older, wiser man that I respected. And every time we sat down, he'd just say, "Why haven't you finished your PhD? Why haven't you finished your PhD?" And I was like, "Well, this, that, the next thing." But you just need somebody to say, "What, why haven't you started your PhD? Why haven't you finished your proposal? Why haven't you started getting into your data gathering? Why haven't you started writing up your final report?" All these life coaching sort of principles are the things that really get you to make progress. And that's all about what we're trying to accomplish here on the Student Success Coach, is to give you that encouragement and that support and the practices and the tips and tricks to be able to get a lot done. So to answer this question, I would say get into the workplace. I would say start building up some cash, some investments if possible. Start establishing yourself in your career, and then just lock in a commitment somehow that you'll come back to your PhD at a later stage, and then I think you can have the best of both worlds. And subscribe, learn on this YouTube channel. Go and check out my courses in Udemy. It's all about student success, and very much of it is geared towards being a successful part-time student.